So I'm really proud and excited to stand in front of you today, and especially tell an audience focused on investment and venture capital and deep tech about this vision. So the vision that we've isolated is really picking up on a trend that we see is going to be happening in the future. And we call this volumetric filmmaking. And I'm James, CEO and co-founder of Scatter. So Scatter's the company, and our mission is to bring volumetric filmmaking to life. Wow, that made a big difference. Thank you for the tip. Our mission is to bring volumetric filmmaking to life. And we're doing this in a number of ways that are being stitched together. So I first want to tell you what this is. And it's really a genre, or in some ways we describe it as a creative discipline that specifically is being activated in immersive media. So this is augmented reality, virtual reality, or XR, it's being called, all the R's, it all applies. And at the center of it is a practice that we've built, actually, in some ways as artists. And this practice is taking fundamentals from filmmaking, the idea of telling real stories about real places or using the world as the input, and then bringing those stories to life in a game engine. So you get the interactivity of games, but with the materiality of filmmaking. And what that enables is really amazing stories. Stories that can't be told any other way. Stories that actually are as immersive as the world that we live in. So you can think of like the holodeck, a tired Star Trek example or reference. That's actually becoming true today. So why that's important is we live in a highly interconnected world where, as we've heard many times tonight, the digital and the physical are becoming deeply conflated. And in order for us to be able to tell stories, like, for instance, many of our team members come from a background in documentary, we need to actually be able to engage with the medium of our time to be able to tell stories that are relevant for this day and age. That means not just the subject matter of these stories, but also the format and the medium. And so that's actually how our team got our start. We started as immersive artists, as documentary filmmakers, telling stories about the world today using immersive media. So today we've published actually 3 titles, and we're working on our 4th. And I'm going to describe one of them to you today. So this is, in terms of the first pillar of implementing our mission for volumetric filmmaking, telling the stories that are in this format, really setting the example, is the first of that. And so I want to tell you briefly about a story that we came across. And it actually came from a collaboration with a filmmaker named Alex Gibney. He's a documentary filmmaker here in New York, Oscar Award winning. And his latest film was about the Stuxnet virus. Many of you probably in the audience know this story. In brief, it's about the first cyber weapon that was created by nation states, in this case the US and Israel, that actually enacted physical damage on the world. In this case, it was the Iranian nuclear enrichment program, a facility at Natanz. So Alex exposed this story, and we collaborated with him on the film. And then we saw a unique opportunity to bring that film into a format of virtual reality and tell the story in a totally different way, where you as a viewer essentially embody the Stuxnet virus itself and go on a journey to understand how cyber warfare actually works from a first person's perspective. This project premiered at Sundance in 2017, so it's 2 years old at this point, and gave birth to some of the tools that I'll be talking to you about today, Scatter's products. It was also just in October awarded the 2nd ever Emmy for a virtual reality project in news and documentary. So we're actually starting to see recognition from traditional entertainment and news organizations like the TV Academy for films made in this format, which is exciting. Great win for our team. Obviously, I'm honored, but I think it's more of a signal for the viability of this format as a storytelling medium. So I'll show a trailer for that project.
It's a covert operation. Maybe you don't know as much as you think you know.
Here is a piece of software that should only exist in the cyber realm, and it is able to cause real-world physical destruction.
Stuxnet wasn't just an evolution. It was really a revolution in the threat landscape.
Everyone's getting this story wrong, and we have to get it right. Stakes are too high.
We are the most vulnerable nation on Earth to cyber attack ourselves.
In international law, when some country targets a nuclear facility, it's an act of war.
I understand the difference in destruction is dramatic, but this has the whiff of August 1945. Somebody just used a new weapon, and this weapon will not be put back into the box.
It's very scary stuff. People would come out of the headset and be like, "Oh, that was the coolest science fiction story," and I'm like, unfortunately, that was real. And obviously, these forces of cyber warfare are affecting us deeply in things like the 2016 election. So there's more of the story to be told. And to get back to this mission that we have, in 0 Days, you saw this character that almost appeared as if she was made of code. This was an NSA informant, actually genuine testimonial from the NSA about the US's involvement in this cyber warfare. And in the film, or the VR experience, she acts as a guide. In some ways, her physical performance and her genuine testimony act as a bridge between the fictional world of the synthetic world and the real world, where this actually had an impact. And this is what excites us. This is the sort of the seed of volumetric filmmaking. And we're amazingly inspired by the immersive potential. Yeah, clumsiness, agreed, we're getting there. But as Matt was saying, there's a view where once you've experienced the immersive power of VR, it's really hard to imagine that not becoming the way of experiencing media in the future. We believe this and see this. But we also see what we're losing when we go into totally synthetic worlds and shut us out from things that are experienced with real people and real stories. There's nothing like seeing an actor on a stage or an actor on a screen, and the way that we relate to those characters in real life and feel what they feel, because our brains are wired to recognize other humans in their actuality and the truth that we get with filmmaking or theater. And we fantasize about this world where these two things come together, where interactive storylines and participatory things like video games and the kind of magic and fantasy that creates then are mixed with things that are true to life. Things like, if anyone's watched Westworld, it's TV telling the death of TV in a TV series. So I think we're inspired by these possibilities, and of course acknowledge all the dark Gibsonian things that could come along with that. But we actually see that this isn't as much of a science fiction as it could be today. And the seeds for this type of new medium that we're calling volumetric filmmaking are planted now. And so to get at a rough definition of what volumetric filmmaking is, it's the ability to create video game-like experiences that are as participatory and interactive as any other 3D experience. But what you're experiencing is not synthetic. What you're experiencing was actually genuinely taken from the world with a video camera or with a set of capturing technologies. And this is an amazing trend that we're accelerating for sure, but we've also pinpointed as a movement outside of us. It's bigger than just scatter. And our mission is to define this and also democratize it. So this new medium is accessible to everyone. And the way that we're doing that is the second pillar of Scatter's mission is creating tools. So in the creation of projects like 0 Days, Clouds before that, and our new projects now, we've built software that allows people like us, people who are scrappy, creative, have a filmmaking and a story-first approach to creating content, to be able to make in this way. So our first product is called Depthkit, and it is being produced as a proper creative tool. You can think of it somewhat like Adobe Premiere 3D. But what it enables is the most important part of volumetric filmmaking, which is the ability to put real human performances into immersive experiences. And who are our customers here? They're filmmakers. They're people who are already telling stories, but just using traditional mediums like 2D storytelling. And this is the hack. This is why there's actually a huge business behind what we're doing. The world is already full of amazing storytellers that are incredibly technically talented. They just don't know how to code, and they don't know how to 3D model. And right now, that's the barrier to entry that you're looking at as a creator wanting to get into immersive media. But meanwhile, you have platforms like Snapchat or things like Adobe Premiere, prosumer to consumer, where the art form of storytelling is actually totally pervasive around the world. And this is because we have easy access to video cameras. So our question is, what if we could use computational photography and hardware sensing, in this case depth sensing, to enable users and creators with skills in storytelling using 2D medium to then take the leap into volumetric and actually tell their story and represent themselves in this new way. And we've done it now. So we're launching what we call the new Depthkit. We were in sort of this crazy beta period for a long time, the last 2 years focused. And now we've released the new tool, and it's going worldwide quite quickly. So I want to introduce you to what Depthkit is. It's a little bit like what you just saw. It's a piece of software. It runs on a desktop computer or a laptop, and it connects to a depth sensor. Most famous depth sensor is the Microsoft Kinect, which the previous version has been discontinued, although Microsoft has made claims that they're building a new one, which is exciting. And also Intel RealSense, occipital structure core. There's a whole ecosystem of hardware out there for high-quality depth sensing, as well as a trend in mobile. Things like the iPhone X now has depth sensing, active depth sensing on on the device itself. And because the quality of these consumer-grade depth sensors, while they're affordable, they weren't designed to make images that are, consumed by people. More or less, they were designed to make images consumed by machines, or to do sort of more static scanning, like capturing a still environment or an object. But we're interested in motion. We're interested in actors and performances, because that's what breathes life into stories. So we've built software that allows our users to use the video equipment that they already know to be able to calibrate their camera to a depth sensor and then capture and put those high-quality performances into 3D. And it's being used around the world. So this is actually an uncalibrated version. Also, you don't need the camera. And this was we did a workshop in South Africa and distributed Depthkit to 10 media centers throughout the entirety of the continent to enable storytellers there who are actually already very focused on Unity and advanced computational photography to make stories with Depthkit. And it was called the Electric South Lab. You should check it out. And these experiences don't just work in headsets. It's incredibly lightweight, our format. So it works in VR, it works in AR, on your phone, on the web, and WebGL. It's being used all over the place. So we believe in 3D everywhere. We just see virtual reality as being the kind of premium format for fleshing out the story. But it's really ubiquitous playback. Wherever 3D is found, you can put Depthkit there. And this is what the setup looks like. Again, it's quite easy to set up. So I know I'm running low on time, so I'm going to show you quickly a video. This year at Tribeca Film Festival, there were 5 projects now in the competition for virtual reality. And 3 of those were actually powered by Depthkit. So we were really proud to see such traction at the elite avant-garde of filmmaking, because this is really where culture is born, and it kind of goes from there. So we made a trailer showing their experiences. So to date, I've shown you things that Scatter has made, and now this is our community. This is what our users are making.
Copy, Houston, body flaps coming.
Sense of ease and peace is experienced. Sense of ease and peace is experienced.
Copy.
we're really proud of our creators, especially because in this video, it's not the usual suspects that are making this media. One director, his name's Asad Malik. He's grew up in Pakistan. He's a college student when he made his premiere at Tribeca Film Festival. One of the other directors, director of Queerskins, Ilya Silzak, she's a full-time doctor at Rikers Island, and she did this on her spare time. So we're enabling storytellers who otherwise wouldn't have the means to make such highly technical experiences like VR and AR, but have amazing life experiences and stories that need to be told to now be the directors and step into that director seat and tell their story and really define this new medium along with us. So I'm going to skip through this one because I'm out of time, but there's other awesome creators that are making things. We've got investors and partners and all of that stuff. So we have traction. We're embedding within the ecosystem. We've got great supporters. So we couldn't be more blessed to have that also on our backs when we're not traditional founders. And we run a meetup series, so I'm going to totally plug my meetup at your meetup. Where it's called VF NYC. It happens quarterly. The last one was at the New Museum. It was sold out. 160 people filled the New Museum Theater. We had tons of people on the wait list. We're going to be doing another one soon. So check that out. Maybe we can share out. I don't know how that works. And thank you for your time. I went a little bit over, but I'm excited to be inventing this medium and to have your focus for a minute. So thank you.
So maybe we'll just skip the questions so we can keep it on time. This one over there.
Hi. This is a very cool idea. So literally, as to my understanding, is basically you develop a software platform, software tool, by using a 3D sensor and make it available for filmmakers, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. I must have said something coherent, so thank you. Yeah.
Like me, I use the RealSense Kinect a lot back then, when I was in school. A very common technical challenge is the range. The detection range is very limited. So I'm wondering, I noticed that those films you made, most of them are for indoors, right? And I'm wondering if one of your customers needs to make some outdoor or make some other film which requires a large space, how can you handle that challenge?
Great question. So the question was, how do our customers use Depthkit outdoors? And if I'm hearing you correctly, also engage with larger spaces. Is that correct? Luckily for us, despite the old generation of structured light and time-of-flight cameras like the Kinect 1 and Kinect 2 being basically damaged by sunlight, the current generation of depth sensing, which is active stereo depth sensing, including Intel RealSense as well as the latest structure core, they work great outside. So we're seeing a whole new range of use cases. In fact, one of our users right now is shooting a skate video in 3D and volumetric, which is cool because I grew up making skate videos, and that's why I got interested in video at all. So outside is great. It's working now, and that's been enabled by new hardware and portability. Again, being able to run this stuff off a laptop, which we worked hard on, is important to that. The second question about large spaces. So we're inventing the human performance capture element of the volumetric filmmaking stack. So the ability to bring 30 frames per second volumetric video that truly represents human action, like motion capture, into VR and AR. However, we recommend that our users use things like Matterport or other photogrammetry techniques like Agisoft Photoscan or capturing reality to build environments. In the future vision for the company, we see ourselves as like the Adobe for immersive media. We intend to build these types of solutions in the same vein of democratization and ease of use. However, in today's ecosystem, we have to play with others nicely, and we can't invent everything at once. So we're solving the hard problem and then recommending that our users use other techniques to capture environments at this stage.
James, I know you're a really creative person, but I have to ask this question. So could you apply this technology to like sports? So I'm watching the World Cup and I want to become one of the players in virtual reality. So I'm a star world-class soccer player and I'm seeing the game from that perspective.
It's a great question. I also there's a lot of creativity in sports. So I wouldn't say I'm not interested in that, although I'm bad at sports if it's not obvious. So sports applications are really interesting. Obviously, that's one of the most important places where we care so much about human performance and physicality, and it's obviously a huge industry as well. Specifically, the use of there are volumetric capture companies that are focusing on stadium scale experiences. Intel has a studio set up called Intel Studios. They bought a company called Replay Technologies that used to be called 3D that does this. And also there's researchers at University of Washington in Seattle that are actually taking sports footage and making it augmented reality in retrospect, which is unbelievable using machine learning. So, what's that? It's not live, but they use YouTube videos and they can actually reconstruct them into tabletop augmented reality. It's like super mind-blowing. And for us, because we focus on smaller scale and individual creators, the sports applications come in ways of sports training, body scanning, that kind of thing. And so it's something where we have users who are building sports applications, but it's not the core focus of our because we're trying to define the creative grammar from more of like an artistic point of view. But it's all part of the same. I mean, video is everywhere, right? So this technology will also be everywhere. So you'll have your dream, I promise you.
Sorry, guys. Hey, so as you have shown a couple of individuals or creatives using this tool, Depthkit, how is the business model? Like, is it based on the value creation, or is it based as a flat fee? Because you have invested a lot of time, I believe, to come to this point.
That's a great question. So the business model for Depthkit is very similar to anyone who's used like Adobe Creative Cloud. It's a subscription-based software. So it's very similar to all SaaS that we're used to, except the unique component of it still, because it requires very deep integration with hardware, it's a desktop application. It's not like a web-based application. So we sell subscriptions to the software, and our users use that, and that gives them access to creating as much content as they want. Business model is an interesting question because competitors in the space of specifically volumetric video, we're uniquely positioned against other players in that space on the vector business model. So companies that you might have heard of, a company called 8i raised a lot of money for a volumetric video solution. Also, Microsoft actually has their own in-house volumetric solution called Mixed Reality Studios. 4D Views, there's a bunch of other ones. The way that we differ from them is those studios actually charge creators to use their facilities. So it's very similar to a Hollywood studio business model in a services capacity where if I want to capture a hologram, I bring my talent to the studio and they capture it for me and they give me back the assets. And I usually pay by the minute or by the day. We have a different value proposition, which we enable creators to work in a much more distributed manner where they own their own hardware and they can shoot as much content as they want and they just have to pay for access to the software. So that scales, whereas there's scale limitations on the other models because it's really tied to those locales where those studios exist. So we believe our main sort of path to market is, and we're seeing this right now, our users who learn how to use Depthkit now can resell those services as service providers for amazing margins. So a video producer who makes $200 or $500 a day shooting traditional video can charge sometimes $10,000 a day right now to use Depthkit because it's such a unique skill. And that market will only grow and it'll scale with us. So the value proposition to our customers is huge, and that value prop is gonna build competition at the services layer, and we don't want to compete there. We want to enable all of them to do it for us, basically.
All right, thank you, James. It's terrific. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.